how's it going? Have you ever had a moment where you cannot say no to a juicy steak? I have that all the time. But what you can say no to is the huge side of rice, the french fries, the mashed potatoes and gravies, the mac and cheese. So I want to show you what kind of sides I have when I'm eating a huge, juicy, high calorie steak. So enough talking and let's get to it. Okay guys, so let's get to it. Here is the star of our show. This is 20 ounces of ribeye. This is a huge piece of meat, massive amount of calories. So what can we do? This is what I like to do with my steak. If you notice, it's almost as much vegetables as it is steak. So what we're gonna do is be able to get filled and it will help us balance our calories. Here we have well over 1,000 calories. Here we have under 100 calories. So that's what I always like to do to make sure that I'm still able to eat this, even though this is going to be on a weekend. Today is a Saturday and I have actually done an extra hour of cardio. So I put aside an extra 1,000 calories to even be able to eat this today. What I have going on right now before I start anything, let me show you over here. I have my cast iron preheating. We want it to be nice and hot. Okay, so let's get started with the seasoning. Before I season anything, I'm gonna cut some of this into smaller little pieces so I can get some oil rendering. As soon as we season it, we'll throw it in there and start cooking. Hope you guys can hear that. That is sizzle. And we're gonna leave that piece of fat there so we can render it out for the vegetables. Okay, so here we go. Oh, and I forgot to show you guys, this is the thermometer I will be using, the wireless thermometers, to make sure that we have our temperature perfect. I very rarely eat this kind of steak, so I want to make sure that I do not mess it up. Start with a nice portion of salt. Don't worry about it because a lot of the salt will fall off, so definitely don't go light on it. As you can see, it's super thick. I'll make sure all of it gets nicely seasoned. Next, here we go. Super fresh. Does not get fresher than that as far as pepper goes. And again, I'm seasoning quite liberally, but a lot of it is falling off, as you can see on my cutting board. Okay, and like I said, this is garlic and onion powder already mixed together. Light little coating. Okay, we're all set, so let's get to cooking now. Let's get to the cast iron. And there you go. Those are the little pieces of fat that we put in, and they've been in there for just like under a minute. They're already rendering very nicely. And like I said, when we started out the steak, we had weighed it with this fat, so it was already included in our calorie count, so don't worry about that. Sorry about all the smoke. Let's get the temperature up just a little bit more, and let's get to searing. So I'm gonna sear it on both sides, then I'll add the thermometer. So I'm gonna get to searing and then we'll move on to the vegetables after it's seared. Okay, and I just flipped it, but I wanted to show you guys that sear. Ooh-wee. Okay, so I'm gonna sear it on the second side, get some of the edges done. After I sear the edges, then I'll get the thermometer in there, and then we'll lower the heat and get the vegetables cooking. Okay, check it out. We got a nice sear all over. So now I'm gonna pull this to the side. I lowered the heat all the way so I don't burn my vegetables, and I'm gonna put the thermometer in, get this going. We'll get the vegetables started, and give me just a second and we'll continue. Okay, so let's continue. We have our thermometer on. Let's get some veggies in here. Start with the mushrooms. And in just a second, I will be adding some more of the fat that I had pre-cut earlier. You want to make sure we get a beautiful sear on both sides of the mushroom. We're going to let those sear first before we add any other vegetables. I'm going to put some of these here in between so they can release the fat all over. And I pretty much never use this quantity of fat, so when I do, I want to make sure that I use it in the best way possible for maximum flavor. Okay, those mushrooms are looking beautiful. So now what we're gonna do is add the onions. We will be adding the asparagus at the end because I like to make sure I cook it for very little time so it can be as crispy as possible. But we're gonna put it at the very end so it can soak up all the flavors that will be left behind on the pan. And let's spread these onions out, and now let's cook this. I can already tell you the whole house smells delicious. And if you notice something I did, I angled the pan so the burner is pretty much just getting this side, so the meat is getting less heat so it cooks slow. Make sure we don't burn it because we already have a beautiful sear. We don't want to burn it. And we have not seasoned the vegetables, but we will season them soon. Okay, we'll let that go for a little while now. Okay, and at this point, for my liking, the vegetables are right about done. So we are at 110 degrees for the meat. So now I'm gonna turn it. I'm gonna get the meat closer to the flame. I'm gonna season my vegetables here with some salt, some of the fresh pepper that we had from earlier, and again, garlic and onion powder. Definitely keeping it simple, but it will still be extremely delicious. Give it a stir. And I want to be pulling these out shortly. Just want to make sure the salt is absorbed. Then we have the asparagus, and when we pull the meat, we're gonna let it rest for a good 10 minutes. You know what will happen if you cut the meat right away? You'll spill all your beautiful juice everywhere, and that would just be sad. Look at that, super soft, super caramelized, extremely beefy and delicious. So I'm gonna get my plate. And not tell me that is not a worthy side dish. You could have rice and french fries, but come on, this is amazing. And our steak, according to my phone, to the meter, is at 124 degrees. So we're gonna leave it to 130 degrees and then let it rest. And from there, it'll probably get to from 135 to 140, just on residual heat. And here we have the asparagus. So the only thing that we did for this is we turned off the heat, and it's a cast iron, so it held a lot of heat. And we just added some salt, and we moved it all around so it could scrape up all that good flavor. You see, it looks like it has a few little charred bits. That's all the flavors left behind from the steak. So that's about it. The steak is done resting. Let's cut it, let's plate everything, and let's get to eating. Okay, and there we go. The very last thing that we have here, we will not be leaving those juices behind. Final last step is carefully and just pour them right on top. Not much, but they are packing flavor. So I will see you guys at the table. Hey YouTube, so here we have it, our 20-ounce ribeye monster accompanied by some delicious vegetables. And I want to give a special shout out to the one that made it possible, the treadmill. So today I did 2 one-hour sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, burned about 1,100 calories, and that's what you gotta do when you want to eat like this. So don't forget, more cardio equals more food. Don't forget, more cardio, more food. So now let's give it a taste. And I already cut it up because, you know, it'll be very difficult to be cutting the steak here. The only thing I left all together was the cap. And let's start with the mushrooms and onions. Super delicious. The mushrooms are very beautifully seared. They absorb such a meaty flavor, and the onions are so sweet. It's a beautiful contrast between all the pepperiness. The sweet it hits perfect. Okay, let's give the asparagus a try. And I like to grab it with my hand. Picked up all that beautiful flavor from the cast iron. I don't know if you can hear it. It's still crunchy. That is why I left it at the very end for very little time, just salt, picked up all the additional seasoning from the skillet that was already there. Delicious, and still has that beautiful crunch. And to me, asparagus has like a buttery flavor. I don't know why. Must be all the fat that was there. Now let's try the steak. And we're gonna go right for a middle piece. Beautiful medium rare. Don't mind the hole. That was from where the thermometer was at. So juicy. I mean, it's a ribeye. What else can I say? Beautiful amount of pepper, beautiful amount of salt, just an amazing cut. So juicy. And like I mentioned earlier, this is something I would only have on an occasional weekend, not on an every weekend kind of thing. Normally, if I do want a steak, I do a filet mignon or flank steak, which is much lower in calorie. But this is the, you know, once in a very great while. And I hope you guys like the idea that, you know, you can have a steak like this, but choose your sides wisely. Load up with vegetables, and once in a while, it's okay to have something like this. So thanks for chilling with Henny, and I'll see you guys on the next one.